I'm Donny. I'm the designer for Know Me Patterns number 2064. This pattern goes from size 34 to 52, which accommodates up to a size 48-inch waist or 122 centimeters waist. So this rain jacket is actually made up of a crop top jacket and a vest, and the crop top attaches to the vest via snaps along the uh, shoulders slash front facing hair. Um, the version I'm making today is made from a dry oilskin. So it's cotton that's been pre-treated to be water resistant, but it's not necessarily waterproof. Yeah, so let's get started. For the sew-along today, I'm using this dry oilskin fabric. This is cotton fabric that's been treated with some sort of water-resistant coating. And it's quite crisp now, and it holds a crease or wrinkle really well. But I also can't necessarily press it with high heat. And if I wash it, I'm supposed to retreat it. So I'm going to avoid using high heat, but because it's so crisp, I know that it will hold a fold or press really well, so I'm not too worried about missing out on that. In terms of fabric pieces we'll need, if you want to make the jacket like it appears on the pattern envelope, you'll need several different pocket styles. So I'm going to use two different fabrics. I'm going to use this yellow one, and I'm going to use this off-white one. For the yellow fabric, I'm going to use that for the vest portion, and the white fabric will be for the jacket portion. So in terms of pockets, I'll need 3 of the small size pockets for the vest. I'll need 1 of the medium sized pocket for the vest, and I'll also need 3 of the large size pockets. In terms of pocket flaps, I'll also need corresponding medium or small and medium pocket flaps. So that's 3 small and or 6 for the 3 small pockets and 2 pieces for the 1 medium pocket. And for the large pockets, they're going to have a zipper closure, so we'll need this little like flap or gusset for each pocket. So I'll need 3 total. For the jacket portion of the pocket, I think there's going to be 1 small pocket and 2 medium pockets, and they're matching pocket flap pieces. So 2 for 1 small pocket and 4 for the 2 medium pockets. There will also be inseam pockets on the vest, so I'll need 4 pieces total. I'm just going to use this lightweight cotton I have in my stash. In terms of interfacing, I'm going to use the same cotton fabric I have for my inseam pockets. And because this is, I can't use high heat on this fabric, I'm going to use a sewn interfacing, and I think this lightweight cotton will be fine for that. So in total, I'll need 3 of the medium-sized pocket flap pieces for the interfacing, and I will also need 4, I think, yeah, 4 small pieces. For the jacket portion of this pattern, you'll need 4 of the hood pieces because it will be a self-lining, and then you'll also need 2 of the center hood pattern pieces, and you'll need 2 of the brim pieces. Now the pattern envelope says two brim pieces and 2 interfacing pieces, but this fabric is pretty stiff and I don't want to sew through all those layers, so I'm just going to do a self interfacing. So I cut out 3 of my oilskin fabric for the brim. And for the jacket body, you'll need 2 front pieces, and I've cut out the interfacing here from a lightweight cotton that I had in my stash. You'll also need a back piece cut on the fold. You'll need a back facing piece and interfacing for that pattern piece. And you'll need 2 sleeve pieces. For the vest portion of this jacket, you'll need 2 front pieces, and I've already cut out the interfacing from this lightweight cotton. And you'll need 1 back piece cut on the fold, and I've also cut out some interfacing for this pattern. For notions, you'll need some heavy-duty snaps, a separating zipper for the vest. So my vest will be yellow, and I couldn't find a matching color, but I think this off-white will be fine. Depending on how many of a large size pockets you'll make, you'll need enough zippers for them. So I got 3 zippers because I'm going to make 3 of the large size pockets, and they're not all the same size, but I'm going to chip them down a size. There's an optional D-ring that you can put on if you want, and the pattern asks for a 3/4 inch sized D-ring. Instead of using cross grain ribbon, I just cut out a strip of my fabric from a piece of scrap fabric, and then I'm going to fold it into the right size for the D-ring strap. For today's sew along, I think I'll first show how I add the pocket placement markings onto both the vest and the jacket, and then I'll only show how to sew one of the medium pockets and one of the large pockets, because the construction for the small and medium pockets will be the same, and it'll be up to you how many you want to do. To start, I'm going to take one of my front vest pieces and one of my front jacket pieces. Here I've already folded away the hem, so I know this is how long the finished edge will be. I'm going to line them up along the inner shoulder seam. And this will tell me approximately where the jacket portion will sit over the vest. I'm going to first make a marking there. So now I know where the bottom of my jacket hits the vest, and I want my large zippered pocket to be comfortably below that line. And I also want my small and medium pockets that are on the vest to be above that line, because I want them to be hidden away when the jacket's worn over the vest. So let's work on the large zippered pocket first. Here is one of the large zippered pockets, and I don't know if you can see this on camera, but I've already marked in all of the fold lines on this pocket. So I know that between this line and this line and this line and this line is the finished size of my pocket. And if I measure that real quickly, that is 9 inches and a little over 6 inches. So I want to make sure that there's a space below this line that I marked where the jacket ends that this pocket will fit. But I also want it to be maybe a little bit below this line so that the jacket edge isn't on top of the zipper. And I also want it to be a little further away from the hem, so I'm not accidentally sewing through it when I finish the bottom of this vest. So to make things comfortable, I think I'll just mark something 2 inches away from this hem. And I think I'll mark something maybe an inch down from where the vest ends. And between those lines is 8 inches, so that's good. And I think I want my pocket to be, maybe an inch away from the side edge so that it doesn't get caught in the seam when I sew the side seam. And I want to be let's say like 2 inches away from the center edge. That way it doesn't, I don't have to deal with it when I sew in the zipper. Now I'm going to just place my ruler where I had one edge, straighten it out, and it looks like this width is perfectly 9 inches for this size. But I do have some wiggle room because I think 2 inches away from the center is pretty generous. So it looks like I want my left corner to be right here. I'm going to double check that 6 inches isn't too close to the hem. Okay, and I still have some distance. So I know that the left corner of this pocket will be right here. So I'm just going to draw 9 inches this way and a rectangle that's 9 inches this way and 6 inches this way. So here's my first large pocket, and I hope you can see it on camera, but I guess chalk doesn't show up too well. And now I'm going to work on the pockets that go on the upper half of the vest. If you want to make this jacket asymmetrical like it is on the pattern envelope, you'll need to make different markings for each side of the pattern. And so as it is on the envelope, it has 2 small pockets on the right side of the vest. So I'm already working on the right side of the vest. Now I'm going to try and fit in 2 of these small pockets. So I still have this line here, which represents the bottom hem of the jacket portion. And I want to make things, or I want to make sure the bottom of my pocket is a little bit higher than this marking. This side of the jacket will have 2 small pocket pieces, and from quickly measuring it, or measuring the finished size, I know it's about 4 inches wide and about 4.5 inches tall. So I'm going to get out my ruler. I'm going to first mark, let's say, another inch away from where that jacket hem is. That's probably the lowest where I want my small pocket. And another consideration is the pattern piece does have snap button markings, so I want to avoid putting my pocket over that. I also want to avoid putting my pocket inside the seam allowance of, well, anywhere along this pattern. So I've quickly folded the small pocket into its finished size, and I'm going to use this to estimate where I want my pocket placements to be. So if this line here is the bottom edge of the jacket, then I probably want the bottom edge of the small pocket to be at least an inch above that. That way it doesn't poke out from under the jacket when I wear the jacket over the vest. I think this is a good place for the first one. And I also want to make sure there's enough room above this for the pocket flap. Maybe I'll estimate a line here. And I'm going to add a second small pocket flap, maybe around here. Oh, sorry, I just knocked the camera. I want to make sure that it's between these 2 snap placements and that it's not too close to the seam allowance, the shoulder. I think this is a good spot for it. So I'm going to mark these placements in, and then we'll move on to the left side of the front vest. So the right side of the vest has the pocket placement markings on it now. I have 1 large pocket and 2 small pockets. So I'm just going to copy the large pocket placement over to the left side of this pattern. And I'm also gonna make sure the bottom edge of my small pocket on the right side will match the bottom edge of the medium pocket on the left side. So I'll just do that off camera, and then I'll move on to marking the pockets for the back side of the vest. Hello, so I couldn't find the clip where I recorded how I marked the pattern placements for the back side of the vest. So I'm just showing you the finished garment to show you the relative placement. So on the left side of the back vest, I just lined up the top and bottom of the large zippered pocket from the front. And for this small angled pocket, I just made sure that it laid below the line of where the jacket would be. And I just gave it a slight angle. That way I could more comfortably reach behind my back and get into the pocket. So what I have here is the front left piece of the jacket portion of this pattern. And I've already folded in the facing and the bottom hem just to get an idea of the finished size of the jacket. And I've also taken a medium pocket and a small pocket and folded them into their finished size. So for the pocket placements of this, one of my main concerns is making sure that the bottom edge of the pocket isn't so close to the hem that that'll get caught in the stitching of the hem when I stitch that down. So I know that the hem will be probably 1.25 inches, or maybe just 1 inch from the bottom, but I'm gonna do 1.5 inches just to give myself a little more wiggle room. And in terms of distance away from the center, or the front center, I think I'm gonna do 2 inches like I did for the vest. Let me make sure. Okay, and if I place pocket approximately there, I still have a lot of wiggle room close to the arm side. So I think this will be a good spot for the medium-sized pocket, but there's also going to be a small size pocket. So I think I'll just stick that one maybe a little further away from the neck and closer to the arm side. And I want to make sure there's some distance between the bottom edge of the small pocket and the top edge of the medium pocket, because there will be pocket flaps. Maybe a little higher. Okay, so this looks okay to me. Maybe I can line up the edges of this. Okay, I think this is good. Yeah, I think I want these further edges to be lined up. So I'm going to mark these in real quick. I think I'll just mark the corners. Well, let me make sure it's straight first. Okay, so I'm just going to mark the corners of the pockets, and then I'm going to transfer the markings of this medium pocket to the right side of this jacket pattern. So I've marked on a rough idea of where I'm going to put the pockets. I don't know how easy the chalk will translate to camera, and I apologize for that, but I'm a little resistant to using pencil on this one. I know I can't wash it. So the other side of the right side of this jacket pattern piece will only have this medium-sized pocket. And I think I want those pockets to be symmetrical. So I'll just transfer these markings over off camera, and then we'll move on to constructing and adding on the pockets. For today's sew along, I think I'm only gonna film the construction for one medium pocket and one of the large zipper pockets because the construction for the small and medium ones will be the same. So here I've already finished the edges of this pocket with the zigzag stitch, and I've already marked the fold lines on this pattern piece. So the first thing I want to do with this pocket is to fold down the top edge, and so maybe like 1¼ inch away from that to hold down the top hem. But I'm not going to stitch across the entire edge of the pocket. I think I'll just stitch between the one, two inner marking lines, and that way I can trim away the excess fabric and reduce some of the bulk. I'm also going to sew down the bottom dart of this pocket, and I'm also gonna sew the pocket flaps together. So here's my interfacing and my two pocket flap pieces. I've also drawn on the stitch line for this pocket flap, and I usually do that for any curved edge because it helps me sew the curve a little bit more neatly. So I forgot that I said I was not going to sew the entire edge, so I had to do a little bit of unpicking. But the reason I don't sew across the entire edge is because I want to cut off some of this excess fabric and reduce some of the bulk that'll get from stacking and folding so many layers of fabric. And so now I'm just going to fold the pocket in along the edges where the pattern has suggested it. So now my medium pocket is all folded up. You can see here that's now quite three-dimensional. And so this further folded edge is what we're going to sew down to the actual pattern piece. And this folded edge right here, you can top stitch it if you want, but I think I'm going to leave it unsewn because I think I prefer the look of not having the top stitching here. So when it comes to sewing the pocket bag onto the pattern piece, I'm only going to do one of the three sides at a time because this has a lot of like three-dimensional shape, and it would be a lot easier if I just sew one edge, break, maneuver things around, sew that edge, break, maneuver things around, and then sew it down that last edge. So I'm going to start with this first edge. So I've sewn down the first side of this pocket bag, and I haven't completely pinned down this second side yet because I want to add in the D-ring, the optional D-ring. So here's a strip of scrap fabric that I've just cut and sewed into this 3/4 inch wide strip. Now I'm just going to loop it through my D-ring, I don't need all this extra fabric, but I'll just trim it later. Now I'll just put it under the bottom edge of this pocket. I keep it kind of close to the, or as close to the middle of the pocket as I can. Okay, so I'll finish pinning this and then sew it up. So I've just finished sewing down the second edge of this pocket, and now I just have one more edge to pin down and sew. Now my pocket bag is attached on the two sides and the bottom. And I forgot to say this, or film it, I mean, but I ended up picking and then pushing up the D-ring strap a little bit higher because I was worried it would show from under the jacket portion of this piece when it was all done. So I just pushed that up a bit and then I trimmed the excess strap inside the pocket. So now my pocket is on, and I'm gonna now take the second folded edge that we have and then fold that down on one side and do the same thing on the other side. And now I have my cargo pocket. Looks mostly good. I think it's a little, yeah, if I press it flat. Actually, I think it looks fine from head on. Okay, so I think now I'm going to top stitch down the side between the top of the pocket edge and the stitch line across the top hem. But before I do that, I'm going to trim out a little bit more of like this extra fabric right here just to reduce the bulk a bit more. Now my pocket bag is stitched down along the top hem, and so it's nice and flat here, but I still get that volume in the rest of the pocket. Before I attach the pocket flap, I'm going to mark down the pocket flap placement. And to do that, I'm just going to mark a line that's 5/8 of an inch away from the top edge of the pocket. Here's the pocket flap that I sewed earlier. It's interfaced with some lightweight cotton. And before I turn it out, I'm just going to trim down along the curves so it's a little easier for me to press and neaten up later. I've just finished turning out the pocket flap. I'm not supposed to use heat with this fabric, so I've only finger pressed it, and it looks, I think it looks okay to me. But I do think I will top stitch along the edge of this pocket flap before I sew it down. I've top stitched the edge of my pocket flap, and I've also drawn a stitch line about 5/8 of an inch away from the yellow edge of this pocket flap. Now I'm going to line up the pocket flap with my pocket and make sure it's even, and I'm going to make sure that the stitching line I drew on the pocket flap matches the placement line I drew earlier. It looks like it does, so I'm just going to pin and sew down this line now. Before I top stitch down the pocket flap, I'm going to trim away the excess seam allowance here. My first pocket is now done, or almost done. It just needs snaps, but I'll do that at the end when I add snaps to the entire garment. This pocket isn't completely perfect. Yeah, there's a little bit of wobbliness here, but I don't think it's too noticeable from a distance. And it looks like, I think head on the pocket looks even, but from a slight angle you can see how this edge is a little higher than the other one. But overall, I think I'm pretty happy with this pocket. And now I'm going to move on to showing you how to sew the larger zippered pocket. So here are the pieces for the pocket bag, or the large zippered pocket. First I'll have the actual pocket, and I have already folded in the top edge by 5/8 of an inch. You'll need a zipper. This one is a little long, so I'll trim it down to size before sewing it on. And then you'll need the pocket gusset. So I can't find my regular zipper foot, or my zipper foot, so I'm just going to use my regular foot and try to sew carefully and not go through any of the zipper teeth. So my zipper is now attached to the zipper gusset, and the stitching, isn't as close to the teeth as I would like, but I'll just have to find my zipper foot later. So now I'm going to attach the other side of the zipper to the pocket bag. I'm going to try and make sure that the dots on the gusset line up with the dot or the second fold line of the pocket bag. So I've now finished sewing the zipper to the pocket pieces. I've also sewn in the pocket or the pocket dart seams, and I've also trimmed some of the excess fabric. And I folded in both the fold line edges for the pocket bag and along the pocket gusset. And now I'm going to attach this pocket to my front left vest piece. I'm going to use the lines I drew earlier as a guide. And similar to what we did for the previous pocket, or what I did, I'm going to sew down each edge one at a time. But unlike the previous pocket where I only had 3 edges to sew down, this time I have 4 to sew down. So I'm going to sew across one edge, break, readjust everything, sew down that edge, break, readjust, sew, etc. So I'm going to do that, and then when I come back, hopefully this pocket will look nice. So I've just finished sewing on the zippered pocket bag, and overall I'm pretty happy with it, although there are a few small things I'll point out. I really like how three-dimensional it is, and I think it's a little funny to have a zippered pouch at your hips. In terms of like overall sewing, I couldn't get this corner quite perfect. This one's a little closer, but it's also not perfect either. Maybe I'll go back in and hand stitch this closed, but I'm not too worried about making this look like a completely sealed bag. I also did not account for, or maybe I measured incorrectly, but the zipper ended, or the pocket ended up being a little wider than what I had drawn on to the pattern by about half an inch. So maybe instead of 6.5, or what was it, 6 inches, maybe mark down 6.5 inches for the pocket bag. But yeah, here's the medium-sized pocket and a large zippered pocket. And now I'm going to do the rest of the pockets off camera before moving on and constructing the rest of the jacket. All right, so I've finished adding pockets onto all the pattern pieces that need a pocket. So I've got my front left jacket piece here and my front right jacket piece. What else? Here is my front right vest piece, my front left vest piece, and my back vest piece. So now that all the pockets are all on the pieces that I want pockets on, I'm going to move on with assembling the top jacket portion. So the facing for the jacket is grown on or cut on. And so instead of having a separate pattern piece, we're simply going to fold it over for the facing. I also can't use fusible interfacing with this fabric because I'm not supposed to use hot heat with it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew the facings, or the front facings to the back facing for the jacket piece. And then I'm going to sew the sew and interfacing pieces together. So here's the back facing interfacing, and here are my two front facing interfacings, and then I'll sew those combined pieces to the actual jacket. I've just finished sewing the facing pieces together, and I finger pressed the seam open for the main jacket pattern pieces, and then I just used a regular iron to press the interfacing pieces. So now I'm going to line these up right sides together and then sew them together. Okay, so my interfacing is now sewn in to the facing pieces on the jacket portion. And so when I fold the facing in, should have this nice clean edge. Oh, I don't think I said this the last time I talked, but after I sewed the interfacing to the main fabric, I finger pressed and understitched to the interfacing, and then I finger pressed again and then top stitched along this edge to keep it looking nice and neat. So this edge is a little flappy, but it will be held down when over on this end when I sew in the hood. Of course, this end will be held down when I eventually hem the jacket, and there will be buttons holding the interfacing down along inside here, so it won't be too bad. Okay, so this is done. I'm now going to attach the front pattern piece of the jacket to the back pattern piece along the shoulder seams, and then I'll be back and we can start assembling the hood. So I've finished attaching my back piece to my front pieces at the shoulder seam, and I've also finger pressed the seam allowance open. And I also finished the edges of all these pattern pieces with a zigzag stitch, just so I don't have to do that later. So I think now that my front pieces and my back pattern piece are attached, I'm going to move on to working on the hood. So here are my hood pattern pieces. I have 4 of these side hood pieces because it will be self-lined. And then I have 2 of these center hood pieces and 3 of the hood brim pieces. So the pattern actually calls for 2 from your main fabric and 2 of interfacing. But since this fabric is so stiff, I think I can get away with a self-interfacing for the brim. The first step for the hood is to sew some reinforcement or basting stitches along the edges of the side hood piece, because we'll need to clip into it to get it to fit onto the curve of the side hood piece. So I think I will just yeah, I'll base the sides of the center hood piece and then attach them to the side hood pieces. So I've just finished pinning the center hood piece to the side hood piece, and I've clipped quite a bit along this top curve here to make sure I could get the edge to fit onto the side hood piece. So now I'm going to simply sew it down. Here is the center hood piece attached to the side hood piece. And now I'm just going to finger press the seam towards the center. And then I'll repeat the process for the other side of the hood. And then I'm just going to sew another hood piece entirely. And then we'll check back in. So here are my 2 hood pieces. On one of the hoods, I pressed the seam allowance out to the side hood pieces. And on the other one, I push them in, or well, this one's out. Yeah, so this one is towards the center hood pattern piece. And on this one, I push the seam allowance away from the center pattern piece. And in that way, when I sew them together, the seam allowances aren't stacked, and it'll be a little smoother and less bulky. Now I want to sew the brim pieces together. The first step for that is to simply sew along this long curved edge. From there, I think I'll trim into this curved edge and then turn it out and maybe do a few rows of top stitching. So I've finished my brim piece and I've top stitched it a couple times along the further curved edge. And now I'm going to sew it to the hood piece. I'm matching the notch and the dot markings on the hood with the one that's on the brim. So I made a mistake. I should have basted the brim to the first hood piece within the same allowance instead of just sewing it on the same allowance. So I'll unpick this real quick, baste it, and then sew on the other hood piece. My brim is now attached to the first hood piece, and I think this, I'm going to make this hood piece the top side. So what I'm going to do now is sew on a small buttonhole for a drawstring along the hood later. So brim is attached. I have a little buttonhole that I'm going to use as an opening for the drawstring channel later. Now I'm going to sew the two hood pieces right sides together along the entire long front edge, so or the center and then side edges. I'm going to leave, and then we'll attach the neck opening to the jacket when I'm done with that. All right, so I've finished sewing my two hood pieces together. I've turned it out and I've finger pressed the edges, and I've pushed out and finger pressed the corner or the corners. So what I'm going to do now is sew, I think like maybe an inch away from this edge to create a channel for the drawstring, and then I can move on to attaching this to the jacket portion. I think that if I were to do this over, I think instead of sewing around the entire edge, I'd probably only sew around like maybe a portion of it, like maybe just this area right here between the curves on the hood piece. That way I could spread it out and then understitch the brim and the inside hood piece, and that would probably help keep it from turning out. I think it's fine for this fabric because again it's like quite stiff, so I'm not too worried about the seam rolling out. But depending on your fabric, maybe you might want to consider doing that for your hood piece. Here's my hood piece. I've finished sewing in a channel for the drawstring, and now I'm going to attach it to the jacket pieces. So I've stay stitched around the entire neck edge of both the jacket and the facing. And what I'm going to do now is match this raw edge corner of the hood to the fold line of the jacket, and then I'm going to sandwich the hood between the jacket and the facing. Now I'm going to match everything up along the notches and shoulder seams and centers, etc., and then sew it all up. Okay, so I've just sewn that jacket, hood, facing sandwiched together. I'm just going to take a look at it real quick. See how it looks from the other side. It looks okay. I don't see any puckering or any, ooh, actually, see a little bit. So here's one small mistake where there's a little bit of puckering here. I don't think it's a big enough deal for me to go back and unpick and fix, so I'll just leave it. You know, it's like inside anyway, so it's not exactly visible. So I think what I'll do now is I'm going to trim down this edge with my pinking shears, this edge right here, and then I think I will finger press the seam flat, or sorry, that was an end view. I'm going to use my pinking shears to trim down this long edge that I just sewed, and then I'm going to finger press it as much as I can, and then we can get started on the sewing the sleeves. So here's what I have of the jacket so far. Here's the front side, the back side, and here is one of my sleeve pieces, back side, front side. And instead of sewing up the side seam of the jacket and the sleeve seam of the sleeve and then joining them together, I think I'm going to join the sleeve to the jacket first, and then do one long seam down the sleeve and down the side seam of the jacket. And I'm going to do that because there should be no ease in the sleeve cap of this, so it should be pretty easy to match up with the arm's eye, and I won't really need to ease anything in. So here is my sleeve seam. It looks good so far. Yeah. Well, maybe I'll have to eat my words about ease stitching because there is a little bit of puck. Well, I don't know. It's not that bad. Like a little bit of puckering here, but I don't think that looks too bad. So what I'm going to do now is trim down the seam allowance and then zigzag along that raw edge so it doesn't fray too much. and then press the seam towards the sleeve. I'm going to repeat the process with the other side of this jacket and then move on to sewing down the side seams. All right, so my sleeves are attached. So here's front side, the sleeve, and then the back side. So what I want to do now is make one long seam from the jacket hem all the way down to the end of the sleeve hem. And I'm gonna match notches and this armpit seam and the hems of both the jacket and sleeve to make sure that everything lines up. So I'm gonna sew this down now, and then I think I'll finger press the seam open and then move on to hemming the sleeves and the bottom hem of the jacket. Here is the jacket with the sleeve seam and side seam sewn down and starting to look like something. So first I'm going to hem up the sleeve hems, and it's pretty straightforward. I'll just fold in the raw edge by about 1/4 inch, and then fold it in another inch, and then edge stitch down along that first fold. So I'll do that real quick and then come back and then talk about how we're going to hem the bottom of the jacket. So here is the bottom hem of my jacket, and it's going to be similar to the sleeve where I just fold in the raw edge by 1/4 inch, fold that in one more time by another inch, and then edge stitch that folded edge. But I don't want to do that just yet, because if I do it now, I'm going to end up having the bottom hem on top of my facing. So what I'm going to do instead is fold over my facing so that's right sides together with the body of the jacket along that same fold here. And then I'm going to sew an inch and a quarter away from the raw edge, from the edge of the facing all the way to the end. And then I'll turn that out, finger press it so it's nice and sharp, and then finish the rest of the jacket hem. So I've just finished sewing that edge, and if I turn it out now, see how from the inside of the jacket, the facing is now over the bottom hem. So I'm going to trim away some of this excess fabric and then push out the corner. And then I'll fold in the edge by 1/4 inch, fold it in another inch, edge stitch that down, and then we'll be mostly done with the jacket. So here is my, I finished the hem of this jacket. I think it looks pretty good. Here is the inside. See how the facing now sits on top of the bottom of the hem. I'm pretty happy with this. The stitching is mostly straight and mostly even, but the parts where it isn't even I don't think are very noticeable. So I think this jacket is mostly done. I still need to add on snap buttons, but I think I'll do that at the very end. I might go in and top stitch along this center edge of the jacket just to, because I think I like the look, um, but I'm undecided on that. So we'll see what I end up doing. I also still need to add in the drawstring to the hoodie, but again, I'll do that at the very end. For now, I think the jacket is done, and I'm gonna move on to working on the vest now. So here are my two front vest pieces. I've already attached the snap buttons along the front near the neck because I want these to be covered by the lining later. I also think I'm going to skip the interfacing for the front edge of the vest. Since I'm not using a fusible one, it would flap around quite a bit without me tacking it down somewhere. And I think that this fabric is stiff enough that I can get away without adding interfacing. But of course, that really depends on the kind of fabric you're using. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is, with these two pieces, is to attach the zipper along the front here, or the center front here. So I'm going to turn in the edges by 5/8 of an inch and then sew that to my zipper. Oh, and I found my zipper foot, so I'll be able to use it for this large zipper. So I folded in the front edge of my jacket, and now I want to take my zipper. I have an 18-inch zipper here, and line it up with my vest. So I want the zipper stop to be about a 1/2 inch or so away from the seam allowance of the bottom hem. That way, when I sew it down, the sort of bulky zipper stop won't get in the way. So yeah, I think 1/2 inch should be good. And if I hold it here, line it up to make sure it's long enough. Okay, and I think it's about long enough. Here, this is where it ends, and this is the seam allowance for the neck. So if I imagine that that's gone, it looks like my zipper's just long enough. I have the zipper attached to one side of my vest now, and to make sure things are even, I zipped up the other side. Now I'm going to take the other side of my vest and make sure that it lines up at the bottom hem with the other side of my vest. I'm going to screw that down and make sure the top edge is also lined up. Looks like it is. Okay, so I'm going to pin this real quick, and then I will sew the zipper down on the other side. All right, now my zipper is in, and it looks like things are even at the bottom, but at the top center, it looks like my right side is like a smidge higher than the left side, or like this right side is a little higher than this side right here. But the difference seems to be like, I don't know, maybe about a quarter, maybe less than a quarter. That's about a quarter. No, yeah, about a 1/4 inch. But I don't know. That doesn't seem like a big difference. It seems like something I can fix when I sew down the next seam, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. Now that the zipper is on, I'm going to attach the front piece to the back, or the front vest pieces to the back vest piece along the shoulder seams, and then I'll press this flat and then move on. Actually, no, I'm not going to attach the back to the front just yet. I'm actually going to attach the side seam pockets to the front and back pieces between the pattern markings. So here's one dot, and here's another dot. So I'm just going to do that for both sides of the back and each side of the front. I'm going to do those now because I think it'll be easier to do while they're separated than later when they're attached by the shoulder. So here I've attached the side seam pocket bags onto both the front pattern pieces and my back pattern pieces, and I've simply finger pressed the pocket bag, the seam towards the pocket bag. And now I'm going to attach the front and back pieces together along the shoulder seam. Okay, I've just finished sewing the shoulder seams of the front and back vest pattern pieces together. And before I sew up the side seams and pocket bags or anything, I'm going to get started on the lining. So for the lining, I'm just going to sew it along the shoulder seams before I start attaching it to my vest. Here is the lining that I've also attached only at the shoulder seams. And for this next step, I want to attach the lining to the vest along the bottom hem. And then once I do that, I'll move on to attaching it along the neck hem and then along the armholes. And once those things are done, I'll work on finishing up the side seam. Here's the back of my vest attached to the back lining piece. I don't think I said it before, but I also understitched it. That way when I fold it in, hopefully the lining won't roll out and be very visible. So I'm going to do the same thing for the front of the vest and the lining pieces for the front as well, and then I'll move on to working on the neck. Okay, my lining is now attached to the vest, but only at the bottom hem, and I've also understitched the seam allowance towards the lining. So now I'm going to do the same. Oh, and I've also double checked to make sure that nothing is twisted around or anything. So now I'm going to sew up the neckline. So I'm going to make sure the shoulder seams match, the centers match and everything. And then I'm going to do the same thing where I sew it up, understitch it, and then I will move on to working on the armholes. Okay, so now my neck seam is attached to the lining, and I've also understitched it. Um, and I think that I probably should have snipped into the curved parts of the neck before understitching, but I'll do that later before I officially turn it all out. So now I'm going to do the same thing for each armhole, and then we can finally um, sew up the side seams. All right, so now the lining is attached to the vest with the seam also understitched. I also want to point out a mistake I made. So you can see how the lining doesn't quite meet the edge of the vest, and I think I cut out the fabric a little too small. Luckily for me, the difference was less than the seam allowance, so it worked out. So now I'm going to turn the vest right sides out, and I'm going to do that by taking the front side of the pattern, maneuvering it through the shoulder seam, and then pulling out both sides through the same side seam allowance on the back. Okay, my vest is now turned out, and now I'm gonna work on finishing up the side seam. So to do that, I'm gonna turn this around, match the vest facing pieces right sides together, and I'm gonna match up the armpit seams and the pocket seams. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start a little bit above the actual main fabric. I'm gonna start maybe like up here on the lining. I'm gonna sew all the way down to the pocket and then sew around the outer edges of the pocket and then sew down to the hem, making sure they match at the end. And then I'll go down another couple inches or so. Okay, I've just finished sewing up the or part of the side seam. So here is the inside of the lining, and then I went down the side seam around the pocket, and then I continued down the rest of the side seam. So what I'm going to do now is repeat this for the other side of the vest, and then I'm going to finish up the vest by slip stitching the side seam closed on both sides. I'm going to slip stitch the front of the lining down to the zipper. And then I will, actually before I do that, I'm going to press the fabric towards the front, or the pocket fabric towards the front. And then I'll start cleaning up the edges, like the armholes, the neck edges. They look a little nicer. So I'll just probably do some finger pressing and then maybe some top stitching. And I think that'll be it for the vest. No, I still need to add on the snap buttons. So I think I'll just finish up the rest of this and then come back when everything's done. Okay, I've just finished applying the snaps to the jacket and vest portion of this garment. And I want to point out a couple things. So first I did end up top stitching along the front and bottom hem of the jacket portion. I also marked out the snap placements for the jacket on the outside, but I ended up placing them um, inside on the facing. You can do whatever you want, but I decided I wanted it to match what I had made on the pattern envelope. For the also I applied my snaps outside, so there's like some like dirt or whatever on the pattern now, like there and there. So inside is a little dirty before I got to wear it, but I guess this is supposed to be an outdoor garment, so it doesn't really matter. Here is the vest portion of the garment, and the snaps on the buttons and along the center are different sizes because I didn't have enough of the same size for the entire garment. I think that's all I need to do. Oh, no, I still need to add in the drawstring, and then I'll finally be done with this jacket. Okay, here is the finished jacket. I think the D-ring is a little low because it kind of peeks out from under the jacket portion, but overall, pretty happy with it. So here's a front view, side view, back view, and I hope if you're making this jacket, you found this sew along useful. And if you do make it, feel free to tag me on Instagram.